All right, Clean Freaks, we're back in studio for episode 5 of this video series for loaner management in sterile process. We're back in studio today with Matthew Rechin, also known as Rex. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Hank, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing good, but we're going to talk about staff and teams today that maybe aren't doing so good. We're going to talk about the concept of burnout in sterile processing, and there's going to be a lot of folks like, hey guys, y'all don't need to talk to me about that. I know exactly what that feels like. But we're going to be talking about maybe some of the inputs or the impacts that bring this burnout about, and can kind of inflame the burnout that's already there. And these are things that there's actually solutions for. And a lot of what we've talked about already in this season impacts this: a lack of visibility, the fear, as we were talking about last month, the top of license perspective that we kind of alluded to. So let's maybe start at the beginning here and say, what are some of these manual processes that become so onerous that they can lead to this level of burnout that's just kind of sweeping across the industry today, Rex?
Yeah, thanks, Hank. So to begin with, there's no question that the data is out there everywhere. Two-thirds of the current workforce in the SPD, caregiving team, nursing professionals, two-thirds are reporting that they plan to leave the industry within the next 3 years. It's a staggering number when you think about it. On the one hand, we've never had more professionals in our industry as we do now. On the other hand, we've also never had more planning to leave. And these are folks, when you look at the reasons, some say that they're just going to retire, which is obviously a scary thought. You think about all that experience leaving. But the second leading cause of people wanting to exit our field is directly related to burnout, feeling overworked, and feeling underappreciated. And a lot of that is driven by something that we've spent a lot of time talking about, top of license performance, people feeling that they're not performing day to day at top of license or to the full extent of their education and or licensing or certification. So if you think about it in the SPD, we're talking about all of those manual tasks. By and large, much of the loaner process, loaner tracking vendor managed inventory or loaner trays, it's almost entirely a manual process. From the moment that that case gets scheduled, someone has to pick up a phone or they text the rep. The rep texts back. When it gets close to the surgery, someone in the SPD is contacting the rep. Where are my trays? After the case is completed, contacting the rep. You got to get your trays out of here. What about what happens when the vendor comes back to check out their trays and something's missing? Someone spends half the shift running around the whole hospital trying to see where an implant is or what was stored where or whatever it may be. ReadySet does a great job of eliminating those manual tasks all through easy to use automation, which we're proud to say has a direct positive impact on reducing caregiver burnout.
So addressing the manual issues, as you mentioned, around the loaner piece, that part of that comes um, at the cost of bringing staff that has um, become comfortable with the manual process, right? Even though it does lead to burnout and it's frustrating, there's a real sense of, hey, we've been doing it this way for 5, 10, 20 years, and the process has always remained the same. And yet now we've got to change the workflow in a very real way. How do you navigate that conversation and that transition, knowing, that this happens so many times to clinicians in healthcare, right? We're constantly being pulled out of an old process, put in a new process, and we're told that technology is going to solve all of our problems. And yet, this situation, clearly there is a problem and there's a lot of manual processes and it's not working. And I think most people already would agree with that. But then still, there's that bit of hesitancy to say, yeah, but this is what's safe because it's the process that I know.
I'm glad that you brought it up because the status quo it's real. It's what we live with every day, and certainly in our field, we have any number of our clients who say, "Yeah, I recognize that the process isn't as good as it could be. However, it's what I know, and it's what we're going to continue doing." So, oftentimes, one of ReadySet's greatest competitors is just that whole idea of there is a better way, and it will help you be a lot more efficient. More importantly, there are any number of hospitals that unfortunately have been burned in the past by seeking or beginning or agreeing to work with an IT solution out there that perhaps doesn't have the ability to integrate with their current systems, or maybe doesn't do everything that you thought it was going to do. The beauty of ReadySet is it's highly agile so that it is able to work with virtually any of your existing IT or system infrastructure. And it requires very little, if any, change from a workflow point of view. All we're doing now is providing you the visibility and the data that you need in order to eliminate much of that those manual tasks that can feel overwhelming.
I think a part of it too that you alluded to is um, in the past we've kind of approached some of these questions from a piecemeal solution standpoint of okay, well we can help on the check-in process, but then it's kind of up to you, or like we utilize internal tracking systems for the internal process, but then it kind of disappears from there. And then even though to the back end of all right, now the trays the case is complete, and then it converts back to another manual process of okay, but now I still have to call somebody, now I have to notify somebody. So bringing that all in under a technology or solution, it can hardwire the reduction of manual process throughout the entire workflow. I think that's a big win for the industry.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the days of hospitals being able to utilize what are widely called point solutions, a solution that does one thing. It may do that one thing really, really well, but if it doesn't solve a litany of issues, it's not an efficient use of resource. Certainly, it's not an efficient use or an efficient investment. One of the other things that I think makes ReadySet stand apart in our industry is that it's not a point solution. It is not just the system that you use to improve tray check-in. It will completely revolutionize your entire surgical supply chain from the moment a case gets scheduled all the way through until a case gets billed, same day, no touch POs, out the door, literally up and running within 15 minutes.
Yeah, I guess that's the educational piece of that is whatever solution you're solving or whatever manual process you're converting, there's implications and kind of like a waterfall impact across the rest of the workflow. If it's into the supply chain, if it's into the OR, and back again. And so that integration piece, I think that was one of the words that you used, uh, is important for any user out there who's considering changing their process with anything IT related. Is how's this going to work with our existing systems, and how are they going to talk, and are there any gaps, and how do we navigate around that? I think that's a very important kind of concept to put on the table and say it's worth thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about it, burnout does not just mean manual tasks. Burnout is also, as you mentioned, a change in workflow or adding in new technology, but perhaps not getting the training that you need, or maybe it's difficult for you to use, or whatever it may be. So at ReadySet, we believe that we not only have to provide a very agile platform, it's got to be very easy to use so that you're up and running quickly and that you're instantly able to recognize, hey, this is making my day, my job a little bit easier. And most importantly, it makes you feel like I'm really contributing to providing healthier patient outcomes.
Speaking of making jobs easier, in one of our next episodes, we're going to be talking about the consignment space and the nuance that provides and impacts around this loaner management process we've been talking about. in this series so far. So, Rex, thank you again for your time today in this series. And I want to remind everybody who's tuning in, if you haven't already subscribed to these channels to catch future episodes of this video series with the ReadySet Surgical team, please do so. Now is your reminder. And like we tell you all the time at Beyond Clean, I want to thank you for tuning in and hope you found a lot of value in these shows so far. There's plenty more to come, and keep fighting dirty.